Emily's journey into the heart of the ancient and forgotten part of the forest was fueled by her adventurous spirit and her quest for solitude away from the chaos of her city life. The forest, known amongst locals as the Shadows Vale, was a place of untold stories and legends whispered in hushed tones during the dead of night. It was here, amidst the dense foliage and under the watchful eyes of towering ancient trees, that Emily's path led her to the Cabin of Shadows. As she approached, the cabin seemed to drain the very light from the surrounding area, casting everything in a deep, unnatural gloom. The structure itself was an architectural anomaly, its design neither modern nor ancient, as if it existed outside of time itself. The air was heavy, saturated with an eerie silence that seemed to muffle even the sound of her own footsteps. The interior of the cabin was dimly lit by the fading light that managed to penetrate the grimy windows. The furniture was sparse and coated in layers of dust, untouched by time. Shadows clung to the corners of the room, darker than the dimness around them, moving subtly, as if breathing. A cold shiver ran down Emily's spine as she realized that the cabin was not merely a place, but a sentient entity, aware of her presence. As night descended, the shadows began to stir, whispering secrets meant to unnerve and terrify. They spoke of tragedies that befell those who dared to intrude upon their domain, of souls consumed by darkness, leaving no trace behind. Emily, initially dismissing these occurrences as tricks of the mind, soon felt an overwhelming sense of dread. The shadows seemed to feed on her fear, growing bolder, shaping into forms that mimicked her deepest fears and insecurities. In a desperate attempt to escape, Emily found the cabin's layout inexplicably altered. Doors that should have led to the outside opened into more rooms, each darker and more oppressive than the last. Windows revealed nothing but impenetrable darkness, as if the night itself had solidified into an unbreakable barrier. The whispers grew into voices, clear and malicious, taunting Emily with the inevitability of her fate. They spoke of the cabin's origin, a place cursed by a darkness that consumed not only the light, but the very essence of those it trapped within its walls. This darkness was ancient, born from a malevolent will that sought to feed upon the living, growing stronger with each soul it devoured. As the night reached its darkest hour, Emily's resolve crumbled. The shadows, now bold and omnipresent, converged upon her. In her final moments, the cabin seemed to come alive with a sinister energy, the walls pulsating as if reveling in its imminent feast. Emily's screams were quickly silenced, absorbed by the shadows, leaving no echo, no trace of her existence. By dawn, the Cabin of Shadows stood serene, as if the horrors of the night were but a figment of imagination. The cycle would continue, waiting for the next weary traveler to seek refuge within its cursed walls, feeding the darkness that lurked within, ever hungry, ever waiting. Mark's fascination with history wasn't just a hobby. It was a passion that shaped his entire life. As a child, he devoured books on ancient civilizations, the rise and fall of empires, and the mysterious artifacts left behind. This love for history led him to pursue a career as an archaeologist, specializing in the study of ancient timekeeping devices. His research on sundials, water clocks, and early mechanical clocks had given him a deep understanding of how different cultures approached the concept of measuring time. When Mark stumbled upon the cabin in the Eldritch Forest, he was initially drawn to its timeless appearance. It seemed untouched by the elements, as if preserved in a bubble outside of time itself. The discovery of the strange clock inside the cabin piqued his academic interest. Unlike any timekeeping device he had encountered in his career, This clock had hands that pointed to symbols instead of numbers, and its mechanism emitted a faint, otherworldly hum, suggesting it operated on principles beyond conventional physics. As night enveloped the cabin, Mark's curiosity turned to urgency. The chimes of the clock coincided with abrupt changes in the cabin's environment. The flickering of candles that burned without melting, the appearance and disappearance of objects, and the shifting of the cabin's interior layout. It dawned on him that the clock was not just measuring time, but manipulating it. Recalling his studies, Mark remembered reading about ancient beliefs in symbols representing different eras and powers. Cultures around the world had used symbols to mark the passage of time, to ward off evil, or to bring prosperity. Connecting this knowledge with the clock's behavior, Mark hypothesized that each symbol on the clock's face represented a specific point in time, or even a state of being outside of the linear time he was accustomed to. Determined to return to his own time, Mark closely examined the clock. He recognized some symbols from his research: the Ouroboros, symbolizing cycles and eternal return; the phoenix, representing rebirth and renewal; and others that were more obscure, likely specific to the magic or science that created the clock. Using a makeshift tool from a piece of wire found in the cabin, Mark gently manipulated the hands of the clock, aiming to align them with symbols that resonated with stability and forward movement through time. He chose symbols that, based on his knowledge, represented growth, daylight, and the human realm. Each adjustment caused the cabin to shudder, as if resisting or recalibrating to the changes he made. The process was trial and error, with Mark noting the effects of different combinations. At one point, he aligned the hands with symbols that plunged the cabin into deep winter, the air instantly chilling and frost forming on the windows. Quickly, he adjusted the hands again, bringing back the warmth of a spring morning. This experimentation helped him understand the clock's function. It was a key to navigating through time and the metaphysical aspects it influenced within the cabin's domain. After several tense hours, during which Mark felt the weight of countless ages press upon him, he achieved a breakthrough. He aligned the hands with a symbol that he interpreted as representing harmony and the present era. The cabin began to vibrate, the intensity increasing until it was almost unbearable. Then, suddenly, everything stopped. The oppressive atmosphere lifted, replaced by the familiar sounds and scents of the early morning forest. As Mark stepped outside, the cabin faded away behind him, its purpose fulfilled. He found himself at the edge of the eldritch forest, the morning sun casting long shadows on the ground. The experience had changed him, deepening his respect for the mysteries of time and the ancient wisdom that sought to understand it. Mark knew he had been part of something extraordinary, a secret of the universe momentarily revealed through the convergence of his unique knowledge and the enigmatic power of the timeless cabin. In the heart of an ancient forest, enveloped in the thick mist that clung to the ground, there lay a cabin untouched by the ravages of time. It was here that Michael and Sarah, a couple seeking an escape from the monotony of their city lives for a weekend, stumbled upon this seemingly serene retreat. Their discovery was marked by a mixture of excitement and relief, as their journey had taken them deeper into the wilderness than they had planned, their path obscured by the dense fog and untamed foliage. The cabin, with its rustic charm and inviting warmth, seemed almost too good to be true. Inside, the fireplace was already stocked with wood, ready to be lit, and the shelves were filled with books and odd trinkets that spoke of a long and mysterious history. The couple quickly settled in, unaware that their presence had awakened something ancient, something that lurked in the shadows, biding its time. As night fell, a sense of unease began to seep into their temporary haven. The wind howled through the trees, and strange noises echoed around the cabin. It started with small, inexplicable occurrences, items moving on their own, the sound of footsteps when no one was walking, whispers in the dark that seemed to call their names. Michael and Sarah tried to laugh it off, attributing their fears to the isolation and their imaginations. But as the night deepened, so did their sense of dread. The entity that inhabited the cabin, a creature of the forest, ancient and malevolent, began to toy with them. It fed off their fear, using it to weaken their resolve and their bond. The couple found themselves arguing over trivial things, their trust in each other eroding under the weight of their growing paranoia. The creature watched, amused by their petty conflicts, knowing that fear was the precursor to its feast. In a moment of desperation to prove that there was nothing to fear, Michael decided to venture outside, intending to circle the cabin and dispel the terror that gripped them. Sarah, despite her protests, stayed behind, watching from the window as Michael disappeared into the fog. It was the last time she saw him before he was swallowed by the night. Alone, Sarah's fear escalated into terror. The creature, no longer content to watch from the shadows, began to make its presence known. It mimicked Michael's voice, calling out to Sarah, leading her to believe that he was hurt and in need of her help. Driven by love and fear, she opened the door, stepping into the darkness to find him. The forest around the cabin was alive with the creature's malice. It led Sarah on a chase, always just out of reach, her husband's voice growing more desperate. But with each step, she was led further away from the safety of the cabin, deeper into the creature's domain. It was in this moment of isolation that the creature revealed itself, a monstrous amalgamation of shadow and malice, its form shifting and twisting in the moonlight. Sarah realized too late that the creature had never intended to let them leave. It had been toying with them, savoring their fear before the feast. As the creature advanced, Sarah's screams echoed through the forest, a chilling reminder of the cabin's true nature. When the morning came, the cabin stood silent in the clearing, waiting for its next unsuspecting visitors, the remnants of Michael and Sarah's belongings, the only evidence of their fateful stay. In the end, the forest reclaimed everything, the cabin serving as a lure for those who wandered too close, a trap set by the creature that dwelled within, forever hungry, forever waiting. Annie had always been an independent spirit, a trait that often led her on adventures far from the comfort of her daily routine. Seeking a break from the pressures of her job and the incessant noise of city life, she decided to treat herself to a weekend getaway, a chance to recharge and enjoy her own company in solitude. The destination was a quaint cabin nestled in the heart of the woods, far removed from the hustle and bustle, advertised as the perfect retreat for those looking to escape and unwind. The cabin, surrounded by towering pines and the serene sounds of nature, was everything Annie had hoped for. It was beautifully furnished, with large windows that offered panoramic views of the forest, and a spacious deck complete with a hot tub. Excitement bubbled within her as she envisioned the peaceful nights ahead, soaking in the hot tub under a sky littered with stars, a luxury she seldom enjoyed back home. On her first evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in shades of pink and orange, Annie decided it was the perfect time to indulge in a relaxing soak. The air was crisp, and the only sounds were the gentle rustling of leaves and the distant calls of nocturnal creatures, waking to begin their nightly routines. However, as darkness enveloped the woods, a feeling of unease began to creep over her. It was as if the comforting presence of daylight had taken with it her sense of security, leaving her exposed to the vast, unknown wilderness that surrounded her. Trying to shake off the feeling, Annie focused on the warmth of the water and the beauty of the night sky. Yet, the sense of being watched, an ominous presence just beyond the reach of the cabin's lights, grew stronger. She couldn't pinpoint its source, and no matter how much she tried to convince herself it was just her imagination, the feeling persisted. Eventually, unease won over relaxation, and Annie hurried back inside, locking the door behind her. She tried to distract herself with a book, but every creak and crackle of the cabin seemed amplified in the silence of the night. Sounds that she couldn't quite identify echoed through the trees, some seeming perilously close to the windows. The rustling of leaves, the snapping of twigs, and an occasional thud against the cabin wall kept her on edge throughout the night. Sleep was elusive, and when it finally came, it was fitful and filled with unsettling dreams. By the break of dawn, Annie had made up her mind. The tranquility she had sought in this secluded retreat was overshadowed by the fear that had taken root in her heart. She packed her belongings, eager to leave the oppressive atmosphere of the cabin behind. As she loaded her car, the first rays of sunlight revealed deep scratch marks under the windows and along the door, a chilling confirmation of her fears. The forest, with all its beauty and serenity, also harbored something sinister, something that had come unnervingly close to where she slept. The drive back to the city was filled with reflection. Annie had sought solitude but found that some experiences are better shared, or perhaps some adventures were not meant for her after all. She vowed never to venture alone on vacation again, a promise born from a night of fear and a chilling encounter she could not explain. The cabin and its surrounding woods would remain a haunting memory, a stark reminder of the unseen presence that lurked just beyond the light, watching and waiting.